Hey everybody, it's Chris. This is another Lazy Chucker Disc Golf review brought to you by the Hazy Shade in Dayton, Ohio. Thank you to them for the support this year in making all of these reviews possible. Today we're looking at another Ohio company, Pie Pan Discs, and this will be their second mold, the Grunt. It's their first fairway. It's going to be a faster fairway. It's a 9-speed, so more of a controlled driver maybe if you have that terminology. It has a slightly wider wing. The numbers are 9, 5, -1, and 2 fade, which makes it really close to an Escape, numbers-wise, and that's why the Escape will actually be the main comparison tool in this video. You will see an old pre-Sweden Escape, you'll see a hybrid Escape, and you'll see the new Supreme Escape, which I think is the true successor to the pre-Sweden Escapes. It's going to be a little bit more stable than the current run of Lucid Escapes. You'll also see a Fission Tesla briefly. The numbers on the Fission Tesla are 9.5, -1.5, and 2, which are very similar to the Grunt. But I think MVP's numbers tend to be more understable than the disc actually flies. So you're going to see the Fission Tesla was a little bit more overstable than either the Escape or the Grunt. It shows up, but it just wasn't as good of a comparison tool as the Escape. What are you going to get out of this disc? Well, if you've ever thrown an Escape, you know straight off what I'm going to talk about. If you throw it on a hyzer, it wants to pop up a little bit, but it wants to fade. If you throw it flat, it's going to turn, but it wants to come back to center. And if you throw it on Annie, it should pan nicely as long as you don't turn it over too hard and give you a nice full flight. And that's what I got out of both discs. I say not both discs, both plastics. Now they have two main plastics. They have Cherry Line, which is going to be more like your Lucid or Champion or Z. And they have Baker's Blend, which is going to be more like your Star, ESP, or Fusion. Both discs feel pretty good, and especially since they cleaned up their flashing, they fly pretty similar as well. So it's going to be a hand feel preference. If you like that softer, smoother Fusion type texture, great. If you like that little bit stiffer Lucid feel, they're going to fly pretty similar, so it's whatever your preference is. All right, I have plenty of footage in the field. I have plenty of comparison footage to the Escape. I should note real quick, I throw about 400 feet max distance with my distance drivers. I was getting these Grunts out to about 370, 380 on really good pulls when I was nice and warmed up. So just a little tiny bit shorter than my Escapes, but again, the Escape is a disc I've thrown for a decade, so hitting those perfect angles was a little bit easier, but good distance potential out of these for sure. If you throw 500, 600 feet, please realize these are going to be much more understable. You're going to have to hyzer flip them much more to get those flights, or you're just going to roll them probably, more realistically. And if you're in a shorter arm, if you're sub 300 feet or sub 300 feet, please realize they're going to be more overstable. This might be a nice control, fairly overstable disc for you with that arm speed. So make that mental adjustment as I'm reviewing the disc. All right, that said, let's go to the footage. And as always, thanks for watching. Wing comparisons, you can see the Tesla's a little bit domier, a little more concave wing, and it is more overstable than the Grunt, that's for sure, as you will see shortly. Here with the Lucid Escape, again domier, a little bit narrower of a wing, a little bit sharper, and that was one of the biggest differences I felt between the Grunt and the Escape. Here you can see the Supreme as well. Just a little bit blunter nose, but very similar flights overall, as you'll get to see in the video. Out to the field, sorry. One of the first throws with the new batch, these are the trimmed up flashing discs. You can see here just a nice easy pull. These two throws are trying to simulate like a 350 or lower thrower, and actually you should be able to get about this much flight out of them because they should be max speed for that arm range. Here I am powering it up a little bit, and you can see it stayed really low, but it still pushed forward to about 365 with that skip that you saw at the end. This 90% hyzer was really pleasant to me. It popped up and still came back, which I was pretty thrilled with. This is a good day to throw overall for my arm. My back was feeling good. Here's that big turnover, and this one's going to flex out beautifully. This is the flight you kind of hope for when you're throwing a big flex, and that gave me the longest throw of the day for those discs. Now let's go to comparisons. I talked about the Fission Tesla just not really fitting in with this category, and here you can see why. You can see I threw the Grunt to the left side. It pans back to the right a little bit before fading out, whereas the Tesla was basically on hyzer the whole way. These discs are going to end up right next to each other, so same result, but very different flight paths, which means they actually fill a different role in the bag than each other. Here's another comparison. You can see I threw the Tesla much wider, and here's where the stability kicks in. Both of these had a tailwind, but when the Tesla started getting pushed, it just started slamming left. Significantly more overstable. Not significantly, but definitely more overstable than the Grunt. Here's one of my first Cherry Grunts. This is against the Supreme Escape. You can see I'm putting them on big turnovers, and you can see they're coming down pretty similarly, and I'm actually going to include a picture so you can see just how close these were together, because the flights weren't exact, but you can see the results. And this one's kind of cool too. If you watch on the Cherry Grunt, there are 3 discs up there on the hill that you can see. You're actually going to see the Supreme Escape become that center disc, and you'll be able to see where the Cherry Grunt ends up in comparison. So again, not exactly the same with flights, but very similar results, meaning this is a disc that could swap in and out maybe, depending on which one's more comfortable in your hand. I'm not saying you should replace an Escape if they work for you, but this might feel a little bit different and be something you're comfortable with. Let's move on to the Lucid Escape. This is a pre-Sweden that I've had in the bag for a few years. This was one of my brother's out of his bag. You can see both of these are with pretty heavy tailwind, straight flights until the fade starts to kick in with that height as well as the wind pushing, and they're going to end up pretty close. Out in the field, this is a forced turnover. You can see I got the Grunt a little bit higher, and because it is higher, it's going to swing a little bit farther overall, but you can see the Lucid Escape is turning over as well. This was intentional. I was trying to push them out there on a little bit of tilt. You can see, again, similar results even on those different lines. And this is the open field. Again, the height difference, this time I got the Lucid Escape higher, and so it's going to drift a little bit farther. But you'll be able to see, whereas the Grunt on the left, that blue Grunt, is just going to beat the inside of the tree line, the Escape is, of course, going to slam into it because it was put too high. And let's go to the Hybrid Escape. These are the last 2 comparisons. The Hybrid's just a little bit more overstable than the Lucid generally, but I put a pretty good turn on these. You're going to see both of them drift right, both of them catch to flat and just fade at the end, and put me in putting range of that basket up there in the distance. One last comparison. This hole's about 360 feet supposedly to the pin. I'm not sure of that. This actually had a headwind on it. I wasn't trying to flip these discs as hard as I did, but when the wind caught them, it turned them both. And you can see how similarly it turned them. Again, these discs are not the same, but you're going to get similar results out of them. So in review, the Grunt is Paipan's second release. It is a 9.5 -1.2 control fairway driver, so it's a little bit faster. Sort of blunt-nosed, but has a good speed overall, making it accessible for slower arm speeds as maybe a slightly overstable, and all the way up to big arms for maybe a turnover or roller disc. As always, I want to say thank you to my sponsors, Hazy Shade. Here's an image of their website, and if you put in the code that I'm going to put here, I believe it's a 5% discount, and it reflects well on me. It shows that I'm bringing value to the shop, so please feel free to do that. As always, if you liked this video or found it informative, please feel free to like, share, or even subscribe to the channel. As always, thanks for watching.